Hi, I'm going to explain how to make a small paperback booklet. Something looks like this, with its pages bound with a small spine of about 3 millimeters. So I'll begin, that's the end result hopefully, so I'll begin with the cover, which is on 300 gram per square meter white card. I printed out borderlessly the front page. The white card is A4 plus about 5 millimeters in length for the spine and all the folds that have to be made, which will run vertically along here. I also have the pages themselves, which are printed out on A5 paper and are ready and ordered, ready to be bound. Okay, so what I'm going to do now is just align these pages very carefully with a block of wood, so that the spine is flat and the pages are all set up correctly for mounting. Once I've done that, I'll place the wood across the side furthest from the spine, so you can see the spine would run down here, and this is the side furthest from the spine. So I'm going to actually clamp the book with a block of wood and a G-clamp on the side furthest from the spine, and I'm going to apply the glue along the spine. So I'll be using PVA glue. It's the crafty stuff, it's quite gloopy, and an old paintbrush. Whatever brush you use, basically you'll wreck it. This one's gone really hard at the end already. Right, so I've sturdily clamped this book's pages to the table. The spine is now open. The next thing to do is to bend the pages like this and cut some grooves along with the spine. It will really help the gluing adhesion of the pages if you just make some small grooves about every 4 to 5 millimeters. I'm using a small hacksaw blade here. This will all be hidden from view once the thing is bound. So I'll continue up the spine. Okay, so I've cut all the grooves all the way up the spine. The grooves themselves are probably less than a millimeter deep. Now I've created a bit of dust here with the paper, so before we get gluing anything, let's get rid of that. Right, so the next thing is the gluing itself. So let's start with the spine. Get some PVA onto the end of the brush. You have to be quite sparing here. And roll this back, so you're actually spreading the pages slightly here. So what I'm going to do is gently apply this glue right from this end of the spine, and not too much either if I can help it, avoiding any huge globules. Okay, so I've applied the glue all the way up the spine. There's a couple of little blobs. I'm just going to run my fingers up the very edge. Now I'm ready to turn it over. A block of wood out, turn the whole thing upside down. Perhaps just try and relocate the pages very slightly. Use my finger very gently. Re-clamp again on the side furthest from the spine. Right, moving quickly here because this glue is drying. Then I'm going to repeat what I just did. So now you see I'm bending the book as it will be backwards, and I'll reapply a little more, not too much glue, so coating the edge of the paper on the other side. Okay, so once again I've just wiped my fingers down the spine to make sure there's no residual glue. I'm going to release the clamp and turn the pages around so that they sit very near or at the beveled edge of the desk, and you can take the wood and lay it along and give it a squash with your hands first of all, and just use that pressure to extract any extra glue from inside, and it's not really going to be needed. Here I think I've been a bit generous with the glue because it's coming out. Right, so I've cleaned up the edge of the desk a little, and now so I'm going to clamp the wood along the spine as carefully as I can, just sticking very slightly over the edge of the desk so that it doesn't stick to the desk. And then I'm going to put the wood just a couple of millimeters, maybe a millimeter back from the very edge, and then I'm going to clamp this wood. Right, so I've left it to dry along the spine for about an hour or so, and I'm just going to apply some more glue now all the way along the spine, just to so I can do this, loosen the clamp, move the spine off the edge of the table, then apply the glue, and then I'll move it back and apply that fully along the length here, increase the strength of the spine. So I've applied a couple more layers of glue, and before I let it dry too much more, I just want to run a small penknife blade between the desk and the paper just to make sure it's really not sticking. So I'm looking at the cover. This is the front cover. I'm using a piece of A5 to find the exact width of what will be the pages, and that will be where the first mark on the inside that I make will live. So I've lined up the piece of A5 paper and the front cover of the book, and make a very tiny pencil mark at that point, the inside of the cover, top and bottom, where the A5 meets it, and that will be my guide for the other marks that I need to make. Okay, so I can discard this piece of paper now, and what I'm going to do is draw a very faint straight line from top to bottom, and it's important to get it right on those marks, because even a millimetre out will mean your book isn't straight when you finally bind it. Okay, so then what I'm going to do is make another set of marks exactly 3 millimetres to the right, i.e. towards the back of the book from the first set of marks. I think that'll be the actual width of the book, about 3 millimetres. Then draw another line down there. In a moment I'm going to score along these lines. And then what I want to do is draw another line approximately 3.5 millimetres and further to the right again. So now I've got 3 lines. So then what I'm going to do is I'm going to make it 4 lines. So I'm going to make another mark, top and bottom, 3.5 millimetres towards the front of the front cover. Right, so now I have my book cover, which looks like this. On the inside there are 4 lines running up the spine. The middle 2 will be folds which fold the book like this, and the outer 2 will be the ones that allow the book to open up. Right, so I'm going to use this hacksaw blade. I'm going to use the very corner, this quite sharp corner, to do my scoring. The inner 2 lines will form the curl of the book this way, and I'm going to score those first and bend them using the metal ruler. Right, so I've done the inner 2. What I'm going to do is just wipe away the paper, and I'm going to use my metallic ruler to bend this card along the score lines. And bend upwards like so, and then run your finger along the table and then turn it around and bend it up again. Now we can see we have 2 fairly nice score lines which give us a good edge to the book. So the next thing to do is to take the second pair of lines on the outside and score those, but these will have to be bent not inwards but outwards. Okay, so the first score line, I'm going to bend this back now, so that now what we see is a small line down the cover here for bending backwards, which will allow the book to open without tearing the spine. So I'll repeat that process on the back cover. So now I have my cover, which has been scored 4 times down the inside. The 2 in the middle have been bent so the book closes, and the 2 on the outside have been bent so that the book will open outwards. The spine is now pretty dry, so I'm just going to undo the block of wood. So what I now want to do is to fit the pages into the cover. And when we do fix that in place, you want to make sure that the spine isn't translated downwards or upwards. You want to be exactly level. I've applied the glue down the inside of the spine, not too thickly, and I'm just going to run my finger down the very edge here and get rid of any excess. Don't want it coming beyond the score mark, otherwise the book won't open properly. So now you have to slot the spine of the book in. We're going to make sure that the pages are not sticking out of the cover at top and bottom by giving it a tap here and here, and then once that's done I'll lay the book face down so I don't damage it, and apply the wood block again. Now I'm just going to let the very edge of the cover over the bevel of the edge of the desk here, so that I don't completely squash the spine as I tighten it up. That should help to keep the pages actually lodged inside the spine. So I'll just give it a millimetre or so's gap, and then tighten it up. And I'm going to leave it for a couple of hours because the air doesn't get to the inside of the spine as easily once the cover is applied, so it will take a little longer to dry. And so I'll give that a good amount of pressure and leave that in place for an hour or maybe two, and then hopefully the book's finished. And this is the end result, and you can see how the cover page bends back along the first fold. And you'll find probably just a little bit of glue has seeped through the cracks. Just run your finger on the inside to release any extra, and that's all fine. So there we go, that's the book.